Studios production. Okay, so this PowerPoint is titled Chapter 2 Quiz Video. It's a quiz testing your understanding of the chapter for after you've viewed the videos for the chapter content. So the questions for this quiz are going to be presented in order, and the questions are going to be presented first, and then the answers later. So the best way to do it is to pause the video after each question, record your answers, and then see how well you fared with regards to the answers presented later. Question 1. Consider the following examples of technology. Identify all of the input, output, and storage technologies used by each. An ATM, automatic teller machine, a mobile phone, an in-car GPS navigation system. Pause the video and record your answers now. Question 2, Part 1. State the units typically used to measure clock speed and hard disk capacity. Part 2. State 2 ways of connecting an external hard disk to a computer. Part 3. Distinguish the terms primary storage and secondary storage. Part 4. A digital camera produces files that are 1,500 kilobytes each. Calculate how many photographs can be stored on a standard CDR. Pause the video and record your answers now. Question 3, Part 1. Define the term embedded computer. Part 2. Identify 2 input mechanisms often used by disabled computer users. Part 3. Distinguish the terms supercomputer and mainframe. Part 4. Identify common applications for the following input and output devices: touchscreens and barcode readers. Pause the video and record your answers now. Okay, so having recorded your answers to the past questions, it's time to take a look at how the answers selected for this video compare. So the first question used the command term identify, which usually refers to a shorter but detailed response. And so the question was to identify the input, output, and storage mechanisms for each of the specified devices. The first one was an ATM. So for input, typically most modern ATMs use touchscreens, where there are buttons for commands or for typing that users can just type on the screen to reach whatever menu they desire, or some older models do still use keypads. For output, the monitor screen usually is where the results of the touchscreen and the keyboards are displayed. There's also usually a receipt printer. This is common because most ATMs print out receipts for users to help them document their transactions and make sure they're accurate. And then for storage, the ATM stores memory on the current customer's account information. It communicates with the bank network to record the transactions and also to determine whether or not the transactions can be made depending on the balance of the account and how much money they have stored. The second system was a mobile phone. We all pretty much know these pretty well. Usually, most mobile phones these days have touchscreens for typing, for texting, whatever it might be. They also have microphones. As a phone, you have to be able to talk into it. So microphones allow that transfer. For the output, there's a speaker for when you're talking to a person or when you're using an app. And then there's also the monitor screen itself that displays what the touch screen has. And then the storage, the memory of most mobile phones records application downloads and other phone records, such as maybe outgoing, incoming calls. Although usually it's more common is that most modern day phones are used to download apps and use them, so the data for running those apps is stored on the phones as well. The third system was an in-car GPS system. And so for input, most GPS systems will usually have some kind of a keypad, or, again, a touchscreen. The two are usually interchangeable when it comes to typing. And they'll also have microphones, depending on whether or not they either require the user to type in the address of their destination, or some can allow the user to speak it into the microphone, and it can recognize it. The output, again, is the screen or the monitor that displays the route or the map, and then the speakers, as most other GPS models are audio automated. And then the storage, though usually less common than the other two devices, GPS also store data. They record commonly used routes, previous destinations, and other uses for the GPS that the user has taken in the past. And so it can usually record those routes, and then rather than enter in, say, a full address again, users can give that address a convenient name, and then simply enter in that name, and it will provide the route to them. Okay, so the answers to question 2. The first question wanted the units for measuring memory and clock speed. So for memory, these are usually what are called bytes, megabytes, and kilobytes. These are usually the most heard terms. And then for clock speed, it's measured in hertz, gigahertz, or megahertz. The next part wanted to know 2 different ways to connect an external hard drive to a computer. And the 3 listed are 3 different types of connections, though similar. USB is an external connection and is most popular for pretty much all computers, but FireWire is also a sort of a variation of USB, though less common, it is still used. The third part wanted to distinguish between primary storage and secondary storage. Primary storage is the computer's built-in memory, the memory capabilities and the data storage that the computer itself has, while secondary storage might refer to the usage of, say, a flash drive or flash memory, an external disk, or any external device that's used to hold more data from a computer program. And then the calculations for the fourth part are shown below. It's basically a conversion between the kilobytes of the files and then the standard CDRs, which usually hold between 650 and 700 megabytes of data, and then a simple division problem. The third question, first part, wanted a definition for an embedded system. And so embedded system usually refers to a computer or some other type of digital device that's hidden, or, as the name suggests, embedded inside of another item or device. Then the question wanted 2 examples of input mechanisms that might be used by disabled computer users. And as they were specified in the chapter, 2 of them that are usually used might be soft keyboards that make for easier typing for users who might not be able to use normal keyboards, or if the user is unable to type, voice recognition is a pretty common technology that's used. We talked about it with the GPS. Most devices actually use voice recognition so that the user can speak what it is they want to search, or what command they want to begin, rather than type it. The third part of the question wanted to distinguish between a supercomputer and a mainframe. And so a supercomputer is a computer system with multiple processors working together to manage most complex tasks. So more processing power helps the computers basically work through all the functions and commands more quickly. A mainframe is very similar to a supercomputer. The only difference is it is specialized for data throughput. And so the processors, rather than working on complex tasks, are usually used to process mass amounts of data and then organize them in, say, a database or whatever might be used to store the data in. And the last part of the question wanted common applications for touchscreens and barcode readers. Talked about in the other questions earlier. Touchscreens are used on everyday devices like mobile phones or tablets. Also in the first question, they are used in ATMs as well. And then barcode readers, most typically, we see them whenever we go to stores and buy products. Barcode readers are usually used for product and packaging identification. So, knowing all of these answers and all of these questions, analyze how well you did, and if you didn't do so well, go back and reread the chapter again, find the specific sections, whether it be the actual classification of the systems, the input, or the output, and read through them, and It can be good practice. Come back and try to answer the questions again and see how well you do.